Padre Pio of Pietrelcina is one of the most extraordinary saints of the 20th century. Known for his deep spirituality, his gift of reading hearts, and his countless miracles, he is perhaps most famous for bearing the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, which bled for 50 years of his life. This remarkable event made him a living sign of the Passion of Jesus and drew thousands of pilgrims from around the world. Born in 1887 in the small village of Pietrelcina, Italy, Francesco Forgione, later known as Padre Pio, was marked by a strong devotion to God from an early age. He entered the Capuchin friars as a young man and was ordained a priest in 1910. Shortly after, his life would take an extraordinary turn that no one could have imagined. In 1918, while praying in front of a crucifix in the choir of his monastery in San Giovanni Rotondo, Padre Pio had a mystical vision. He saw Christ wounded and shining with light. At that moment, invisible arrows of fire seemed to strike his body. When he came to, he realized his hands, feet, and side bore the same wounds as Christ crucified. These wounds were not superficial, they were deep, painful, and bled constantly. They would remain with him for 50 years, until shortly before his death. Doctors, scientists, and skeptics came to examine him. Some tried to explain the phenomenon medically, but none could provide an answer. The wounds never became infected, despite remaining open for decades. They bled regularly, yet Padre Pio never lost enough blood to weaken him fatally. Even stranger, the blood emitted a fragrance described by many as the smell of flowers. For the faithful, these signs confirmed that the stigmata were supernatural, a direct participation in the suffering of Christ. Padre Pio accepted these wounds with humility, though they brought him much suffering. He did not consider them a badge of honor, but rather a heavy cross. Many times he asked God to take the wounds away if they were not for his glory. Yet the stigmata remained, a testimony that God had chosen him as a visible reminder of the Passion. The wounds were not the only extraordinary aspect of his life. Alongside the stigmata, Padre Pio had gifts of bilocation, the ability to be in two places at once, and the power to read the hearts of those who came to him for confession. Pilgrims lined up for hours, sometimes days, to confess to him because he could reveal the sins people were too ashamed to say aloud. He also performed many healings, both physical and spiritual, through his prayers. But the stigmata remained the most striking sign. For 50 years, every Mass he celebrated was marked by profound suffering. Witnesses said that, when he elevated the host, tears often ran down his face as he relived the agony of the crucifixion. For Padre Pio, the Mass was not just a ritual, it was a real participation in Calvary. Despite the pain, Padre Pio continued his daily duties as a priest, hearing confessions, celebrating Mass, and offering counsel. Thousands came to San Giovanni Rotondo, making the small monastery a center of faith. His presence brought comfort to the suffering, and his wounds reminded the world of the price of salvation. In 1968, shortly before his death, something miraculous happened. The stigmata that had marked his body for 50 years suddenly disappeared. The wounds closed without leaving scars, as if they had never been there. This sudden healing was seen as a final confirmation that the stigmata were not natural but supernatural. Padre Pio died peacefully on September 23, 1968, after receiving the sacraments, and his last words were simply, "Jesus, Mary." Today, millions continue to venerate Padre Pio, inspired by his humility, his devotion, and his willingness to suffer for the love of Christ. The stigmata that bled for 50 years remind us that holiness is not about comfort, but about sacrifice, love, and union with God's will. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it today, and do not forget to subscribe to this channel, leave a like, and activate the notification bell so you do not miss more stories of saints and miracles that continue to inspire us in our journey of faith.